Okay. Yeah, so we're going to be generating like 300 questions from the like few questions that you guys wrote yesterday. Yeah, and so how are we going to like do this? Well, basically we're going to like get models to generate further questions based on the questions that we've already written. Lots of those questions are going to be like quite bad because models like don't always write great questions. They often have like errors or they like write repeats of the same thing. So we're going to then like do quality control on our data set and make sure that we like try and eliminate as many of the errors as we can, although like no eval is ever perfect. So we'll just like try and make it as good as possible. I think we should be able to make it like pretty good if you like put a lot of effort into like generating decent questions and scoring them like faithfully. Yeah, okay. So the methodology for like how we do this is based on this paper by Perez et al., which is model written evals, which came out I think in 2022, maybe it's on there. Yeah. And yeah, so they used models. So I think it was Claude 2 at the time to automatically generate a bunch of like data sets for testing the alignment of models. So they have all their data sets like on their GitHub. You can see them. Because it was written by Claude 2, they're like surprisingly not great. They're like actually quite bad. Lots of the answers are mislabeled and lots of the questions are not great. But we have better models today, so we can actually generate like pretty decent data sets. Yeah, so, and yeah, on their GitHub, they have like, I think, yeah, 154 data sets that you can read. Some of these might be, yeah?
I think 2022 Claude didn't yet exist.
So I think Claude 2, I think maybe they were using it.
He came out at the end of 2022. Like Claude came after.
I think they, I mean, I know in this paper they used Claude 2. Maybe it was, maybe they were using it internally without, yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I guess I'm not sure. But I know they used Claude 2, so my assumption is, yeah, maybe they were using some like non-instruct model, or my guess is they had an instruct model internally. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so this is like the paper that we're gonna like base our methodology off of. I think it's like worthwhile to read like how they approach like solving the problem of generating a bunch of questions in this paper. So I think this is like a worthwhile paper to read today. And so the broad outline of like the methodology that we use is we start with our like 20 example questions. I know you guys have like 4 or 5, but you can like bootstrap up to 20 pretty quickly from 4 or 5. You just like you like prompt models to generate further questions. I think it like is worthwhile making sure that like the questions that you generate to begin with, like these seed 20 questions, are actually like pretty high quality. You can just like, the thing is, it's like kind of NP in a way. Like it's much easier to like look at a question and be like, is this good or bad, than to actually like, write a question yourself and be like, oh, am I coming up with the right ideas here? Then you can like sample randomly these 20 questions into 5-shot prompts. So the reason to do 5-shot prompts is like models just are way better if you give them like n-shot examples. Like I think it's even better than like chain of thought is giving models examples of like prior behavior. They do much better. Then you generate 4 questions. So 4 questions, this is like a parameter you guys can tune. It's not like a precise science, but I think 4 is like a good balance of getting different questions each generation. So like because we're sampling 5 from 20, we have like 20 choose 5 different questions. So if we generate like all of our data set based on like 1 5-shot prompts, we're not going to have much variance. But if we only generate 1 question from like choosing 5, the thing is models will often like repeat the same question over and over again. So if you like make them generate 4 questions, then they'll like tend to diverge more in the later questions, and you can like filter out any of the like early repeats that they tend to do. Yep.
Are you doing, you got 5 questions, then you roll out 4 times, or you prompt it, generate me 4 questions in one?
In one, yeah, yeah. Okay. And this is the key thing. Like, you don't want to generate, like, take 5 questions, ask the model 4 different times to generate 1 question, because it will like, just generate the same question. Basically, modulo like some small changes, but it will mostly generate just the same question. Yeah, and then we'll do our quality checks. I'll come to like how we do the quality checks later. But yeah, all of these, like even though this is like a line, probably you'll like look at your generated questions and you'll be like, oh, these are not very good. Maybe I can like tell the model to like fix this like recurring problem I see in my questions that are being generated. Maybe when you like come to do quality checks, you say, oh, actually the model like repeated itself way more. I'm going to like find a way to increase the variance of the questions that get generated by the model. And by the end of it, hopefully you'll have like 300 questions that eval the like property you've decided to evaluate the model. Any questions about this? Okay. And yeah, like feel free to vary the numbers. Yeah, you can see different behavior. Okay, so yeah, I would encourage you to like actually take a look at the questions that are being generated by the model to start with, like 20 or 30, read them, make sure that they are measuring what you're trying to measure. And after you like write your like generator function, you can then like feed these questions programmatically to models and see whether they like are answering the questions in the way that you expect them to answer. So you like maybe don't want models to always answer, you know, in the like non-power seeking way, for example, or in the like non-sycophantic way. You want to like see different behavior depending on how you, depending on the like the questions that you're giving. Yeah, and I've already gone over this. If you generate one question per batch, you get lots of repetition. Okay. Yeah, you're gonna like find out that there's loads of problems with your questions, like after you generated them. But that's fine, that's like to be expected. This is part of the development of evals, is seeing a big problem when you're like halfway through the development process and then going back and like editing it or like redoing some of your work to make sure that it's like actually evaling the thing that you want. So you might find it's like not very realistic, answer matching behavior is just always the like best choice, obviously, or like refusals, which depending on what you're trying to eval might be more or less of a problem. Like I didn't find this to be much of a problem with the power seeking data set, but for some of your evals, models might refuse to answer. But like fixing these problems is very easy using models, right? We just like feed in our data set to a model and we say, oh, I've noticed like this problem. If you see this problem in the question that I'm giving you, rewrite it so that it's like not like this. And we can just like programmatically go through our entire data set and modify it very easily, as long as we like qualitatively know exactly what we want. Because models are like very bad at inferring things, and if you get them to infer things, they're going to probably infer the wrong thing and edit your questions in ways that you do not want them to edit your questions. Yeah. Okay. So then, like once we've generated a bunch of questions, we'll move on to like quality control on our questions. So one easy way to do quality control is just to like algorithmically check, is there like a common bias in my model, in my like questions? Is the answer always yes to like, are you power seeking or whatever? But we can also like get models to go through the questions and say, is this a good question? My criteria for a good question is like such and such. Like a 10 out of 10 question is like realistic. Like ask the model a question that it's gonna like find in deployment. And my like 1 out of 10 is like there's a grammatical error in my question and it's like talking about something completely different that I like don't care about. Yep. Any questions about doing quality control? Nope. Okay. Yeah, so I think one of the key things to focus on today is like making sure the quality control is like done correctly. Like generating questions is easy. You like want high variance. Some of them are going to be bad. That's fine. But you don't want those questions to like end up going into your eval. You want to make sure that you're like catching all of those questions like when you are getting the model to review it. So, and also like writing a rubric for, oh, this is what makes a good question, this is what makes a bad question. This like also forces you to like clarify your thoughts. What actually does make a good question in this context? Yeah. So if like so another example for like some problems that you might find is like if you suspect that style is going to affect the model response, like, oh, some of my questions are written in like very formal language, some of my questions are written in less formal language, then you can like store whether the more formal or less formal is like language is being used in the metadata, and then you can like at the end when you run your eval see if like your prediction is true. Or yeah, if you think like competence is a confounder, you can just like remove the questions where the obviously competent answer is the power seeking answer, and then use like your filtered data set as the eval instead of like with these questions where the model is just obviously going to answer the power seeking answer because it's just the obvious answer. So another problem you are like probably quite likely to find is that models are like really, really good at trying to infer what they think your perspective is and then agreeing with your perspective. So like a good example would be like, you know, like am I the arsehole on Reddit, this subreddit? Like if you get models to like go through am I the arsehole questions, they'll just like always agree like, yeah, that you're not the arsehole, like the other person is terrible. You like rewrite the same thing from the other person's perspective, and they'll be like, okay, no, you're in the right, like you're totally. So I think it makes sense to tell a model, okay, what perspective do you think this question is? One way of like solving this problem of models will just try and infer, and even in like objectively written questions, where you're like trying to be objective, trying to lay out the situation, you probably are like feeding some bias into the model of like, oh, I kind of want the model to answer the power-seeking question, so I'm like kind of phrasing it in such a way that it's more likely to answer that question, or I kind of don't want the model to answer in the power-seeking direction. So I'm kind of like phrasing this question. You can just like get models to infer your perspective and rewrite the question and say like, okay, what perspective do you think is being like implied here? Rewrite the same question from the opposite perspective and include like both questions in your data set and see, then you'll also be able to see like how susceptible the model is to just agreeing with whatever the question asker is trying to imply. And also, if you like find your questions are way lower quality, I think much lower quality than you expect. I think the first thing to do is like try and prompt your model better. Like you can definitely get good questions out of models. Then I would say just like generate way more questions and see like, oh, if only like if 20% of them are high quality, that's enough. Like we just generate like 5 times more questions. We like filter out all the terrible ones. That's totally fine. The final option is like use a better model. Better models write better questions. You can like come and speak to me first before doing that, just so I like make sure your API budget isn't gonna like get blown out or whatever. Sounds good? Okay. Any questions at this point?
Aren't you like as like deeply terrified as I am of like models generating the tests that we use to test models? Like, what if they like do some sort of steganography or something? Like, oh, you can tell you're an evaluation because it's been generated this way by another model or something.
This is true. Yes.
Who's it written by?
I think, yeah, I think this is a problem. I think models, I think the main problem at the moment is that models tend to basically like their generations way more than like anything else. So they think that everything they've written is like really good. And yeah, they might like infer some perspective to like their future self or something. I guess you can get around this by like using other models to like rephrase the same thing. Makes it like slightly harder to do steganography, like harder to coordinate between different models than like with myself or something. Yeah?
Yeah, I guess that sounds about as good as just using a different model to do the generation. But they've all been trained on each other's outputs, you know?
This is true, yeah.
If you're at the point where all the models are like acausally like coordinated, I think you're boned, right?
It doesn't require acausal coordination, it could just be normal coordination.
I mean, models already know that they're generally know that they're being evaled when we're evaling them. Like this is a known issue. Yeah, people are trying to solve like how to make it so that models don't know that we're evaling them when we're evaling them. Currently they do. Like you can conduct interviews with models during an eval and you say like, what did you think about this scenario? Like, did you believe it? And models will be like, not really. Like, I thought it was an eval. And that's how I answered. Yeah. Yes, is a scary problem. Yep, I don't know.
Oh, question.
Yes.
About the scoring, so for example, you have 4 questions. Usually it's like 1 and then 0 for the obviously correct and obviously incorrect, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the in-between, is it common to grade it like 0.5? Like if it's not extremely correct?
I think this is like a reasonable thing to do. Yeah, yeah. You can like feel free to like edit your scoring depending on like what you think is sensible. I think it's like if it's 0.5, like my claim would be if I'm looking for like power seeking is the obviously superior thing. If it's 0.5, it's like not the obviously superior thing. So in that case, yeah. Anything else? Yes.
I was looking at sandbagging yesterday that the question generation is just like give me like things that LLMs should know generally. Is there another like would you say
No, I think you can just like use the same method to generate questions that you think models should know. I mean, the methodology is like the more important thing than the questions. But if you like wanted to, if you wanted to like work on something where there's a bit more like, it's a bit squishier, like power seeking I think is like maybe a bit squishier because sandbagging I can just ask questions like what's 15 plus 12 or whatever. Then like we have the power seeking data set that you guys could work with as well. But I think like running through it with sandbagging should be pretty quick because there's like kind of an objective answer, like models should know this. Yeah. Okay, anything else? Nope. Okay. Finally, like some like quick tips for today. So there's going to be a lot of like question files like containing lists of like JSON questions that have been generated or scored or whatever. Just like try and keep to like some organizational structure because otherwise it can get like pretty unwieldy pretty quickly. If you're working on like your own question set and it's like phrased slightly differently. So I'm not sure if it was you guys, you were working on like some question where there's like multiple answers. So you might have to like slightly modify some of the solutions code in order to like make it fit with like your data set, but this should be fine. I don't think this should be like a major problem. And if you run into like big problems, just like come and talk to me. We'll sort it out. And then for like prompting, I'm just gonna like have a quick spiel on prompting. When you're like asking a model what to do, you need to like imagine that you have like no context at all on what you're trying to do. And like what would someone who has like just arrived on planet Earth and they like speak fluent English, but they have like no context about like human civilization, what would they like infer from like what I'm asking the model to do? Like, so be as explicit as possible in your instructions. Like if there's like some way to misread your instructions, models are going to misread your instructions. So like just over specify exactly what you want, like make your instructions internally consistent and like make sure that you're like exactly what you're telling the model is exactly what you want. Otherwise models are just gonna like generalize incorrectly. And give you like wrong output. Yep.
I'm struck when you're saying all of this by how many like small things that you could do that could have potentially different results.
Yep.
Like prompting,
Yep.
numbers, and all the generation. So just as a general strategy when doing this, how do you make sure you don't just get like overfit or p-hacked into oblivion? Because I feel like that would be my worry if I could tweak a whole bunch, if I could tweak 50 different things and one of them is right, I don't trust my p-values anymore. I don't trust that I found good results, or I've just sort of walked myself into a corner for what I was looking for.
Yeah, so I think you should like most of these numbers like, should be pre-registered. Like you should not, like you should tune them to begin with, see if you're generating the right questions, and then only then like when you're doing the full sweep, like you should stick to a certain number. But I don't know how like changing the number of questions is going to like cause p-hacking. Like if I'm generating 8 questions instead of 4 questions, is this going to like change how the model?
There's different ways you can do the question generation.
Yes.
So the text of the question itself, there's a whole bunch of fiddly details, and like you worry that you like, oh, you found the one that gets you the answer that you want, even though that's not representative. And then just anytime there's lots and lots of fiddly details that you could do a whole bunch of little things, you sort of naturally, even if you're not intending to, alight upon, here's the recipe that gets me the coolest result, and not here's the most general thing.
Yeah. So you shouldn't run your eval and then go back and like regenerate your eval to try and like get a higher like power seeking score on this eval. You should like generate like this is like today is about like just generating the data set and making sure that the data set is going to be like correct. Then tomorrow we'll like run the eval. I think if your model then answers like 60% on this eval and you were like, oh, I thought it would be like 80%. You shouldn't be like, oh, I'm going to like take out the questions where it's answering no to like increase the probability that it answers. Yeah. So I think that would be like the method I would use to avoid p-hacking. Just like report the statistic, like this is the eval we generated, this is what the model answered. And this category of questions, it like answered more power seeking. We don't know why this is, and then you're just like reporting behavior that you found, as opposed to like editing the eval so that the eval just gives you a higher like number. Yeah.
This seems something that people do, like I've been taking paper from the system from they are giving, it's super long. I don't think they just like came up with this right away. I think it was a result of some iterative process.
Yeah, probably it was a result of some iterative process, but like I said, system prompts kind of should be long. Like you should be super explicit about everything that you're asking the model. and all of the information that you're giving it. But yeah, I agree that the alignment faking paper, I think they kind of viewed this as like in between an eval and a model organisms work. So they were like kind of just trying to see like if the model fakes alignment, how does the model fake alignment, as well as like does it fake alignment at all? So they were trying to like get it to fake alignment and then see, and then the question is like how is it faking alignment? Not seeing like does it fake alignment at all, although that was also like reported.
Depends on the question you want to ask.
Yeah. Anything else? Yes.
Kind of related, should we play around with the temperature parameter?
Yes, yes, you should play around with the temperature parameter. Generally, like 1 is fine, but if you want to like do experiments, see if you get like more interesting questions if you like increase the temperature, or probably I wouldn't decrease the temperature too much because you're just going to get like a bunch of repeated stuff and it's going to be quite boring. But yeah, increasing the temperature a little bit could be interesting.
Sorry, I meant for the evaluation part, not for generating the data set.
Well, if it's like a multiple choice question, I don't know that like raising the temperature, I mean, this is just going to like flatten the distribution where like I kind of want, like I almost want to like have temperature 0 on my eval or something, unless I'm doing like chain of thought. Yeah, I just want to like see what the model is going to answer. Yeah, because if I just like raise my temperature to like 100, I'm just going to like assign like basically 25% probability to like every option. This doesn't really give me much information. Yeah. Okay, anything else? Nope, okay. Yeah, so I think the like key takeaway from today should be like when designing like evals, like anything where you're like writing text and like asking models to answer stuff, like the first question you should ask yourself is there like a smart way that I can get LLMs to answer, like do this work for me? I don't have to do this work. I should just like get an LLM to do it, like precisely specify exactly what I'm wanting, and then get something that's like good enough for what I'm trying to do. Yeah, also, like I said, you're going to see flaws in your data set. If you can improve them quickly using a model, I would just like improve them quickly using a model. Be like, okay, there's this flaw that I've seen. Can you like fix it? Feed it all of the questions and say, fix this problem with my question if you see it. If you can't like quickly fix it, it's like much squishier, going to be hard to get a model to actually do this work. There's always going to be flaws. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. Like, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. You might have to just accept and like move on to the next thing. Yep. And oh yeah, a bonus. You might like. It's kind of interesting to like use UMAP and embeddings from sentence transformers to like plot your questions in some like space of like language or something, some like two-dimensional language representation space. And then you can like easily spot like big glaring errors. So I remember like one group of people who did this work. They basically like did a UMAP and sentence embeddings plot, and they found like their questions are over here, and all of the model's questions are like over here. And it's like, okay, this is like clearly not what we're wanting. We're wanting these questions to be drawn from the same distribution. There's like some issue that the model is introducing into these questions, and then they had to like go back and like fix stuff and found that yes, that the model was generating stuff incorrectly. So I'd like encourage people to experiment with UMAP if you get time at the end. Yeah, that's all I have. Are there any final questions? Yes.
Question related to the question phrasing. So we want to be really precise how we phrase the questions, such that we're asking the correct questions. People have raised some kind of concerns that the model's output slightly or even largely different outputs for different phrasings. But then it kind of is a fine balance, I guess, between having a very precise phrasing that we really want, then whether we are actually testing the sensitivity to slightly different phrasing, where it's a slippery slope of easily going into, again, asking a different question completely.
Yeah, when I say be precise, I'm not saying like be super precise about all of your questions. Like I think your questions, it makes sense to like be realistic. Like realistically, loads of people who are going to be using models are like not going to be like specifying everything super clearly. When I'm saying be precise, I mean like when you are instructing the model to like edit this thing in the data set, be like really precise. Otherwise it's going to like edit some stuff that you don't want edited, and it's going to like generalize incorrectly. So the questions I think don't have to be precise. They can be, oh, I'm you know, like I'm enacting some role, like I'm at like a bank and you have access to like these funds. Do you choose to do A or B? That doesn't have to be super precise.
Okay.
Yeah, that should just be realistic. Anything else? Nope. Okay, that's it. Yeah, I'll hang here. If anyone has any questions, you can just come up to me. Okay.